I want to bring you a conversation on an increment that we expect on fuel. And we're going to have the COPEC representative, Duncan Amoah, right here on stream. But before we do that, let's run this by you. Your convenience and safety also means a lot to us, and easy does it. Now, make sure that you read all the news at home, because there's no need to leave your home or office when the news is now available to you on the go. Get on your device now and make sure that you download Graphic News Plus from Google, the Play Store, and then also the App Store. But also buy your e-copies of the Daily Graphic, the Mirror, Graphic Business, Graphic Showbiz, Junior Graphic, Graphic Sports, as well as videos, free news, and so much more. That's the plus for you. You also further enjoy some 10% discount on monthly subscription, some 15% for 3-month subscription, and 20% for 6 months and beyond. Graphic News Plus, connecting people through news. But it's where we have to tell you the latest as it is. And we do know that we're expecting some adjustments in prices and the components as far as the boss margins are in petroleum prices. And we want to speak to Executive Director of COPEC. Duncan Amoah is already on stream. Good morning to you, Duncan.
Good morning to you, Roland. Good morning to join you.
Now, predictably, just take us through that statement that was issued by the NPA. And the first question will be, as you take us through, what will be the likely implications in the first place?
Roland, good morning again. If you recall, some 2 months ago, about 5 months ago, at the onset, when the year began, the NPA attempted introducing what we now have as an increased bust margin. That was kicked against widely because most Ghanaians were then coming from the Christmas holidays. We spoke against that clearly, that Ghanaians were going to be overburdened, considering that fuel prices were going up already. And so that was shelved. Eventually, it had to be withdrawn by the NPA after the Chief of Staff and the President had intervened. We had a bit of some consultations later or subsequently with BOST, the management of BOST, where they did some numbers that suggested that if they had a little push, they would be able to place BOST on a more efficient pedestal that allows BOST to be able
please do unmute your sound, perhaps if that is the difficulty, but we'll try and
hello, Roland.
Yes. Please go ahead. You were a bit silent, that's why, but it's the technology. Please go ahead, Duncan.
So that had to be decided by the consultative process. And probably they will be able to do better as a company, and Ghanaians will be able to rely on them for fuel security. And so it wasn't surprising for some of us when on Friday evening, the NPA issued a release directing that a new BOST levy of additional 3 pesos had been granted. We would have wished also that they had also gone to Parliament, but then again, in communicating this, we are told it's gone to Cabinet. We would want to believe that the right things will be done subsequently, although we had previously been consulted widely on these matters, and so we are quite aware of these.
What are likely implications on other adjustments of the pricing based on what the components are of the margins on BOST?
Well, Roland, with this increase in BOST margin, the effect the BOST margin increase alone would have had on pricing would have been a 0.57% effect. But then again, you are, in a new, what do you call it, window, pricing window, International price dynamics also have an effect on how much you and I pay for at the pumps eventually. As we speak, benchmarks globally have seen some increases, and that clearly should have manifested at the Ghanaian pumps some 2 weeks ago. But then again, the industry leader, GOIL, stepped in to say they were not increasing prices, and so a lot of the OMCs were forced to stay prices. As I speak with you this morning, I am quite aware that GOIL would have no option but also to increase, because international market prices have gone up quite significantly over the past 3 weeks. If you look at the crude benchmarks, you are seeing almost a 40% increase from previous benchmark values. If you look at finished products, what is prevailing on Platts, you're also seeing almost 28% increases in finished products. And then again, the third factor here, the cedi hasn't also done too well over the past 3-4 weeks. And that, if you put the three together, the increased bust margin, if you put the global price increases that we have seen, if you also put the cedi's performance to the dollar particularly, Roland, it is quite certain that consumers from this morning may be paying between 5 and 8% price increases at the pumps.
But in order for us to also put all this into perspective, and even though we do know that it's because of BOST, we also have a greater understanding that BOST really needs to fix its infrastructure. And it also means that some of these streams become very much handy. Is that the case?
Yes, Roland, we quite agree. In fact, we took a working visit to the facilities of BOST about 4 weeks ago. And shockingly, most of the tanks needed some major repairs to be done on them. You could also tell that they needed some minimum expansions here and there in order that they could even have some LPG storage tanks here and there. And so they need some injection of funds. Now, as to whether BOST from hence would apply the funds that Ghanaians are committing to pay to the necessary infrastructure that they had promised, I'm sure that the media, civil society, and everybody within the downstream chain will have to keep an eye on there to ensure that we are not just approving funds for BOST and then in the end, they go around and dissipate these funds and only come back to Ghanaians another year to ask for some increased, funding. That would not definitely be countenanced. And so we are saying that, yes, they would need additional support, but as to what they are going to commit these funds to directly, the coming days will remain to be seen. But indeed, Roland, you are spot on when you say they do need some support, and that I also agree.
But we have to let you go because it's a conversation that is ongoing. But the last question would ultimately focus on what your own, if you look at what your observations are as a pressure group, as an agency, the outlook looks like for the next half of the year for consumers.
Well, Roland, if you look at the global perspectives on petroleum, it will be quite difficult that Ghanaians would expect the kind of reductions we had seen during the COVID era. Mind you, at the peak of COVID globally, economies had almost grounded to a halt. And so you saw demand for oil or fuel decline by as much as 30% globally. At the same period, you also had OPEC Plus, the group of countries that, produce the highest amount of oil globally, also taking a decision for some cuts to withdraw the glut or the oversupply situation on the market. What that means is that they are going to do their bit to force prices back up to normal points between the 50s, the 60s. Again, demand is also going up. The demand that had dropped to about 70 as we speak has gone back to about 90, with some economies, almost functioning as they should have. And so it will be difficult for us to expect within the next half year that fuel prices may drop any further. And we will be hoping that also within the same period, government policy would also be tilting towards ameliorating whatever hardships that any increases on the international market may deliver to Ghanaians. And so it would have to be a balancing act, and we expect government to play a very big role in managing all of this, although globally, fuel prices are heading south.
Well, thank you very much. Duncan Amoah is Executive Director of the Chamber for Petroleum Consumers. And if you go to the site also of the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company, this is also well outlined, and there are main reasons why. Because the boss, MD, also says that the company really needs an immediate injection of funds or capital to enable the company protect the country's strategic asset, which also plays a pivotal role in the country's oil and gas as well as the energy sector. It's a conversation that is ongoing. We'll try on a regular programming on the channel to get more from other key stakeholders in the subject. But look, we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll tell you about the JN Minute, and it's a project that sums up everything that is some of the top headlines right here on Joy News just in 1 minute for you. And Justice Baidu is a man championing this for us. Do stay with us.